Is Tourette's genetic? Yes, but it gets more complicated. There are even identical twins where only one of the twins has Tourette's. So Tourette's is a weird disorder and I'm just going to look into it. Let's do it. Welcome back to Boneitch. My name is Luca and I make videos about what it's like to live with Tourette's. So I was reading my comment section and I saw a question and it was something along the lines of, so who of your parents have Tourette's, your mom or your dad? And that is a question that I see more often, and it is usually kind of a leading question to find out if you are real or not. And I've made loads of videos about that. I'll link that right here, so I'm not going to get too much into my opinion on that, but the gist of it is that I think that these questions usually come from a misunderstanding of how Tourette's really work. So that's why you often have questions like, if you really have Tourette's, why don't you swear? Or who of your parents has Tourette's? So today we're going to look into the genetics of Tourette's. Get it? Genetic. I hate myself. But before we start, of course, this video is not to call out anyone. That's not my deal. And of course, I'm not a doctor, just a guy with a YouTube channel and some Google research. So of course, all the resources and sources will be linked in the description box. So let's get into it. So do your genes cause Tourette's? In short, yes. But the reality of it is a bit fuzzy. So let's start at the beginning. Like your actual beginning. Your genetics are made up of a combination of your parents' genes, of course, 50% from parent A and 50% from parent B. And which of the genes your parents pass on is different every time, and that's why you don't have the same genes as your siblings. Unless you're an identical twin, of course, but we'll get into that later. The genetic makeup you'll end up with will determine many things about you, like your eye color. And a few years ago, scientists thought that Tourette's and other tic disorders were caused by mutation in one single gene, and that this mutated Tourette's gene was inherited as a dominant gene. So what's that? You get your genes in pairs, one part from parent A and the other from parent B. For example, you might get the gene for blue eyes from your father and brown eyes from your mother. The gene for brown eyes is a dominant gene, so that means that you only need one of them in order for it to show its effect. Now, it turns out that eye color is actually caused by a combination of at least 4 different genes, but let's not get into that. So the Tourette's gene was thought to be a single dominant gene. That means that you would have about a 50% chance to pass it along to your children. So how does that work? Let's say you have a mother with 2 normal genes and a father with 1 normal gene and the Tourette's gene. So when we draw out the possible combinations of genes that they pass on, you see there's a 50% chance you get a combination of the normal gene and the Tourette's gene. And because the Tourette's gene was thought to be dominant, that means you now have the genetic makeup you often see with Tourette's. But just like with eye color, it turns out that there isn't just a single Tourette's gene. Researchers have found that most people who have Tourette's do not carry a single inactive gene, but instead inherit hundreds of small DNA changes from both parents that combine to cause Tourette's. So that means it's not as simple as a 50% chance of passing Tourette's on to your children. It's not a single mutated gene. There's loads of different possibilities and combinations. But even if we knew exactly which genes cause Tourette's, that still doesn't mean you can safely predict who will get it. I even read about 2 brothers in their 60s who are identical twins, so that means they have the exact same genetic makeup, and one of them has Tourette's and the other one doesn't. So how does that work? Studying identical twins is really interesting for researchers because they have the same genetic makeup. And they have done twin studies on Tourette's. And it shows that 50 to 70% of identical twins, where one brother or sister or person has Tourette's, the other one will also have it. But that means that 30 to 50% of identical twins, only one has Tourette's and the other one doesn't. Now, in 75 to 90% of these twins, the other twin will have another tic disorder. But the severity does not have to be the same at all, and that still leaves up to a quarter of identical twins, where one of them has no tic disorder at all, and the other one has Tourette's. Same genes, no tics. Quite interesting, right? That's because just having the genetic makeup for Tourette's does not mean you'll actually have it. Tourette's is not only caused by genetics, but also by environmental factors. So things like low birth weight, head injury, problems during pregnancy, all sorts of stuff. So that means that even though the genes of Tourette's may run in your family, you might be the first one to have Tourette's or have severe Tourette's. It is not as simple as just you pass along the genes, so you have Tourette's. So you might just be the first one. So in short, research shows that there is a genetic component to Tourette's. There are most likely many genes that come into play with this. And even if you have all those genes, that does not mean that you'll have Tourette's. And whether Tourette's actually expresses itself in an individual also really depends on environmental factors. And the research is not completely done with this yet. There's still a lot to research. So, I'm sorry, but you can't find out whether someone really has Tourette's or not just by looking at their parents or even just by looking at their family. It's not that simple, and Tourette's is never that simple. Let me know in the comments any of your favorite genetic factoids, your favorite Tourette's puns. Leave a like if you thought this was interesting, dislike it if you feel like it. Share it if you feel wild. And don't forget to subscribe, and I love you all so much. Hope to see you soon. Bye.